Hello and welcome to Boardroom Brunch here on News9. I'm Krishnakumar, and on this special edition of Boardroom Brunch, we are discussing the future of aviation and how emerging technologies are set to shape aviation in India. And on this Boardroom Brunch, we have a very special set of guests joining us. We have Kanika Tekriwal, CEO of JetSetGo. We have Simmi Dhamija, COO of AIonOS. And we have Mr. Kuljit Singh of EY. Thank you, all of you, for taking time out to be with us here on this edition of Boardroom Brunch. I'm going to begin by asking Kuljit a very simple question. Air travel numbers are above pre-pandemic levels. The number of aircraft in the fleet of Indian air carriers are double over the last 10 years. And, the number of airports have doubled in the last over the last 10 years. We are at a critical moment as far as India's civil aviation is concerned. And yet, there's so much doubts of how there's a huge demand-supply mismatch. Tell us, what is the way forward from here on?
See, if you look at it from a broad level, I think what you'll find is this is probably the best time for airlines. Airlines are doing fantastically well.
Really?
From a stock market perspective, you look at that. If you had invested in some of the airlines a few years ago, you would have minted a lot of money. So they're doing very well. There are a lot of investor appetite for airlines. And luckily in India, from the airlines perspective, airlines have emerged as a duopoly, almost like a duopoly in the Indian context, which is great from an airlines perspective. So from a macro, airlines are doing very well. And on the supply side also, I would say, from a demand side perspective, Indian passenger market is growing by leaps and bounds. Yeah. One of the few countries which is already beyond the pre-COVID levels, right? Which is a fantastic achievement. I think in this market, if you have to really grow, what is required? So what do you need for airlines? An airport to land, right? So increase the number of airports. An aircraft to fly, right? So somebody has to go and find the aircraft. Luckily for us, we had a lot of engine failures, a lot of aircraft trouble just at the right time. And I say it happened at the right time because it happened a lot during the COVID period. Anyway, even if you had the right aircraft or the right engines, you could not have flown, right? So if you had engine trouble and aircraft trouble at that point of time, it was a great blessing in disguise for the airlines, I think, right? So now you need to get airlines. And somehow in India, you read today in the press, it seems, airline crew are in the headlines today. So maybe you need people as well.
Pilots are in the headlines, cabin crew, ground staff, everybody. That's the reason why I'm asking. Simmi, there is lots of talk about what is going wrong with the Indian aviation, but at the same time, more and more people are taking to the skies. Indian air carriers are placing record number of orders for aircraft, which means that no carrier in the world is placing orders the way Indian air carriers are. So many aircraft coming in, so many people taking to the skies, and yet, what I can only think of as teething issues for Indian civil aviation to take off?
No, so I would not say teething issues. Look, as and when you're having an exponential growth, there will be some of these particular challenges. We have to just keep looking at them and growing basis them. So let's just talk about it. I'll not talk teething issues, but I'll talk a positive side of it.
Okay.
Just see that how is technology enabling? See, what we really have is DigiYatra today by looking at the computer vision technology, integration with the Aadhaar card, and just see within minutes from the airport gate to the boarding gate, you really reach there. So if you would really look at it, it is really enabling. And each of this kind of a development, you would see it's going to reduce the kind of teething troubles we are talking here. Yes, the teething troubles you're talking about, training side, we can really increase the capacity and use a lot more technology there as well.
Okay.
So simulations, we're talking about how to use AR, VR into it. It's the time which basically some of these teething troubles create the need to increase much more. That's how I will really say.
And for them, you're saying technology is the panacea to solve all these problems. But, I'm going to take this...
It's one of the panacea.
One of the panacea, fair enough. But, all of this discussion between the three of us is in the realm of, regular civil aviation. So many people going to airports and taking flights. Kanika, you are running a business which is the opposite of regular civil aviation. And that's simply because there is that huge market as well. So many Indian millionaires and billionaires, HNIs who want custom customized air travel, luxurious air travel, because literally every airline in the country today is a no-frills airline. And yours is a company that does all frills airline.
So, I think there's two sides to it, to be honest. It's not just about frills and services. I don't think HNIs today are really looking for fine dining on board, right? But it's more about getting to a place where you want to, when you want to, and reliably. My own experience today that we were discussing, right? We landed and for 40 minutes we were on the airport looking for a gate. The airline was looking for a gate, obviously, and I don't blame the airline because that's how congested airports are.
And you're secretly wishing how I wish I had taken one of my own jets.
How I wish I could afford to take one of my own jets would be the right way to put it. But soon, hopefully, if India continues to fly the way it does. I think what my customers are really looking for is, to be able to make it for that meeting on time. Because the time is money, the way I look at it, you're flying 0.1% of India's population, which literally controls the fate and GDP of the balance 99.9% of the population. If you can make sure they are in 4 cities, doing 4 meetings, growing the country, growing its GDP, growing business, you've done your job. And I think that's exactly what they're looking for. Not that we're able to achieve it 100%. Just this morning, I had a customer down my throat because he couldn't take off at the time he wanted to take off because of airport congestion. So I think infrastructure is something which is a key enabler for all of us, be it commercial airlines, be it private operations, be it helicopters. And I have to appreciate at the pace infrastructure has grown in India. You look at our airports, you've got some of the best airports in the country. But the challenge is, we're the world's fastest growing population, with the world's fastest growing GDP. So obviously, it's very hard to keep up. Can I expect another Delhi airport to be built within 2 years? No. I think the problems are being solved. Like, for example, in Bombay, you don't have place to park a private jet. But, by December, you've got the new Navi Mumbai airport opening up, which has place for 80 new private jets to be parked, which is going to take away a lot of our worries. Then I was like, okay, who's going to go to Navi Mumbai airport? And then I see this beautiful road that's come up out of the blue, which gets you from South Bombay to that airport in 30 minutes. And that's growth. And that's the India story, I think. That's why we're shining. And I think that's why all our businesses are succeeding.
Fascinating. But before we go any further into this fascinating discussion, we are here after all for a brunch. So, I'm requesting all of you to just dig in so that we can get this conversation going as well. Kuljit, at this stage, I'm going to take these things back to the regular normal people's aviation. People who go to airports, who book tickets on a website and eventually show up at an airport and hope that their flight takes off on time. One is the creation of infrastructure. To my mind, there are two big issues. One is creation of infrastructure keeping pace with the rising demand, and the other is the availability of skilled workforce, isn't it?
Yes. So there also lies the paradox. So India, last I counted, India had around 1.4 billion people. So we have a lot of people, it seems.
Last I counted also 1.4 billion.
1.4 billion people. So a lot of people around, it seems. And in theory, in the aviation industry, the beauty of the aviation industry is that everything takes a lot of time. So if you order an aircraft today, it's going to take you 2 or 3 years or maybe more to get delivered. So you have plenty of advance notice to plan out your operations. And in India, you have lots of schools also and lots of people enrolling in these schools, paying hefty fees and taking pilot licenses or taking crew training, and all of those things are there. And I think somebody in the government announced that there are 1,500 pilots licenses which were given in the first 8 or 9 months alone of FY24. So lots of people getting trained. And yet the airlines complain they don't have the crew.
We've got ample manpower in the country. What we don't have is the requisite amount of experienced manpower. Just to give you an example, to become a captain on an aircraft, you require X number of hours. You can't put a fresher out of training school as a captain, right? You're risking the lives of hundreds of people on board. And that's where the real shortfall is. There's no shortage of fresh, young co-pilots. The shortfall is of senior trained captains. Like, for example, in our company, because obviously we're flying, very important government officials, you're flying very important, businessmen, HNIs, etc., right? The experience we require is far superior to what maybe a normal commercial airline would require for a captain. But is that available? No. Because you can't train in experience. You can only build experience over a period of time. And, that's the sweet spot which I think we're lacking. There's no shortage of cabin crew. I'll tell you one thing. I don't believe in unionization. And if you think you're going to bring a business down by going on mass leave, sorry, you're the only one who's going to suffer. Because you know what? Air India is going to go out there in 3 months, get double the number of cabin crew. Because that's the number of cabin crew available in the market right now. But yes, what we're really lacking is a lot of very senior experienced captains, which I think in the next 5 to 6 years, that gap will get shortened, because as, training schools roll out newer students, you're going to have more and more people fly. And I think one thing what airlines have done very, very innovatively in India is these amazing cadet programs. Like what Indigo has done, for example, is phenomenal. So many of my pilots' kids are part of these programs, and they all come back to me and say, "Ma'am, we wish we had done this when we were children."
And maybe if I have to just add to it, similarly, we have to bring back that glory in this professional career, because if you go back 20 years, this was considered to be, oh, I really want to go in this, and it was like a dream for everyone. And maybe over a period of time, somewhere that glory is not there. So we have to really get that marketing back and make this as glorious for kids to really be able to take this kind of an
Is it because, 20 years ago, there were, certain airlines, in fact, most of the airlines were trying to attract people to take to the skies by giving special perks and frills and making it seem like a luxurious experience. The demand has changed. Now people are saying, we don't want any of that. As long as the ticket prices are rational, ticket prices are more affordable, and that's when we'll take to the skies.
Could be, but at the same time, if you would really see, even now it's a glamorous business, because if you would really see it, it's just taking it point A to point B. But at the same time, look at the airport versus look at any other transport. How and what do you really see? Look at the plane versus look at any other. So it's about marketing. How do we really look at it? Don't look at it, okay, earlier this was it, because earlier the number of people who were flying were also less. The number of people you really needed as a crew or a pilot were also less. So I think we have to look the other side, and how do we make it more positive for the people?
Yeah, okay. I think earlier there was a glamour attached and there was a value attached to what the airlines were offering, right? If they were offering that they'll take you overseas, it had a lot of value. Yeah. Today, other career choices are offering similar or better things, right? They are offering better salaries, maybe they're offering better perks. So it's no longer that attractive.
Also, in terms of regulation, where do you think, work needs to be? For example, it takes longer for a pilot in India to get the pilot license than it would in another country. Like that, Simmi, do you think that, any other way in which you can sort of speed up the process of getting everybody from pilots to cabin crew to ground staff available for Indian air carriers?
I think that's what Kanika also talked about it, is yes, there is a period for everyone to really go to a particular level. But today, if you really look at it, commercial pilot license is taking almost around 4 years, whereas it should take 2 years. And one of the key reasons is not being able to have those flying hours and all of those particular things. That's where, again, use of technology. How can we use flight simulators and give them a similar experience, or to really get to the level of flying hours they're really looking at. I think that's one. It's not only in the case of pilots, it's also the same as in the case of crew. How do we really make sure that we give them AR and VR to really get an experience what they get into the flight in itself? So I think so 3 important things which I will believe we would have to really look at it, which is one is capacity, which she's already talked about the places like Indigo, how the training school has been created and how is it being from a grassroots to the most experienced way and using technology is being done. Second is technology, and third, again, market.
One term that keeps coming up again and again when it comes to solving issues is technology. It's about simplifying procedures with the use of technology, be it asking a pilot to take an online exam or training that pilot using a simulator. And we are definitely in the age of technology, and we are in the age of emerging technologies, cutting-edge emerging technology, from artificial intelligence to machine learning to the entire gamut of these technologies that are reshaping every industry. Simmi, your company's name, if you have to split it up, it's AIonOS, it's called AIonOS, it's AIonOS, AI on operating systems. And it's a company that focuses on travel, transport as a sector. So tell us, how are emerging technologies like artificial intelligence shaping India's civil aviation?
Yeah, so if you would see today, technology has already started benefiting. So we talked about DigiYatra. Similarly, if you would really look at it, FIFA World Cup, what was there? Digital identification of everyone who was traveling to Qatar. At the same time, so we also have the border immigration processes. So reverse of it, that means from the aircraft door to the airport gate, it was just taking few minutes, 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes. So the technology, how was it enabled? It was enabled through technology. So technology can do a lot of things. And now when we're really talking about it, next what? So if you would see even today, the airport, the airlines, all the, I would say, aircraft providers have different processes. They don't have data integration. Interoperability is a problem. So when you really look at it, if you make them one, it can really do wonders.
Kuljit, technology from a consumer's perspective, how do you see it reshaping the consumer's experience from the time they want to book a flight ticket till the time they land in their destination?
Well, see, as a customer, if I had to look at technology, what will be my wish list? Okay, you have a lot of problem with pilots, crews and everything.
Yes.
I would love to have autonomous planes who are just flying on their own.
We're not far away from that. But yeah.
No human intervention, just get on the plane, flying on its own, lands on its own and you're out, right? That would be my first preference. I think the second thing which I would prefer, there's a problem with airline deliveries, aircraft deliveries, right? 3D printing, print the whole aircraft. I think the aircrafts by type are pretty similar. It's only the interiors you may change depending on customer to customer. So it's very amenable to 3D printing, I would say. Another thing, okay, airports in India are a problem, right? Constrained and everything. Why are they constrained? You have 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers wrong runways. You have to wait for one aircraft to take off. There is a certain lean time which you have to build in. So vertical takeoff
Landing.
and landing would be a very good solution from a customer perspective. Then this whole point of, booking a ticket, doing check-in, getting into the airport, zillions of checks which are there, and security check. Nowadays, at least when I go to the airport, it's a nightmare because even if I'm traveling alone with a single bag and my bag just has a laptop, I have to take three trays. One tray laptop, one tray shoes,
one belt.
one tray belt. Three shoes. That means it's not one passenger who's going through. It is three multiplied by three.
Yeah.
That is a big issue. So what I would prefer, is there a X-ray machine somewhere where I don't have to do anything. I just put my bag, go through, and I'm through with that, right? And no checking anywhere. Maybe DigiYatra is a great solution, but maybe if DigiYatra can help me through and through.
Kanika, how does technology reshape the luxury air travel segment?
I think, let me put it this way. Aviation is the least disrupted sector so far, right? I mean, everything.
And you are saying that as a disruptor.
Absolutely. And then it is the least disrupted sector. If you look at it, it's the same primitive aircrafts, it's the same primitive airports, it's the same primitive processes. I mean, I'm sorry, DigiYatra is nothing to celebrate. It's made our life simpler. But, have we come leaps and bounds like we have in phone technology or computer technology, or the food we eat is changing, the water we drink is changing, but in aviation, it's still the same package that you're getting. And I think that's why we call ourselves a tech company. We don't call ourselves an airline or a private jet business, because what are we trying to do? We're trying to disrupt aviation at the core of it, right? And for us, what is our mission? It's to get people in the fastest possible manner from point A to point B. That includes ground transport at times. So, just to give you an example, if a customer today asks us, he says he has to go to Jharsuguda, for example, okay? And now again, everyone thinks it's very simple if you take a private jet. No, the airport is operational for 4 hours. In that 4 hours, 2 hours, you'll have bad weather. Then there'll be some fox on the runway walking around. So, there is a whole lot of stuff that goes into making each flight happen to all these airports which are not commercially connected, especially. You go to Kadapa, you'll have a SpiceJet plane standing there and your plane is stuck behind. Because that's it. That whole airport is just like this. What do you do? So, what we started doing using technology is, at this point, we start telling the customer that, look, this is how we're going to plan your journey. You'll use a car from this point to this point, a plane from this point to this point, a helicopter from this point to this point, and we'll reduce your travel time from 2 hours to maybe 45 minutes or 1 hour. And that's only been done using technology. I think the other main thing where I see a lot of success personally is scheduling. So I don't know if you're aware, but globally, 40% of the planes that fly private fly empty. They're positioning flights. You'll drop a customer, say, from Delhi to Bombay, come back to Delhi because you have a base, and then pick up another customer, take them to Agra, from Agra to Calcutta, again, fly back empty. What are you doing? Your carbon footprint is ridiculous. You're not adding value. You're charging the customer for all those dead legs. And I think what JetSetGo has done brilliantly is, we've built a scheduling software which matches customer demand, where we've cut down on our empty flying by almost 20%. And we give back that money to the customer. So the customer is happier. He's saying, okay, I'll fly 2 more private flights. You're saving the environment, whatever little bit you can do. We're also trying to be a carbon neutral company. We had targets of 2025, which we won't meet. But, again, we're using a lot of technology to understand that. Today, we're measuring the minutest carbon footprint that we have, not only from what our planes are flying, but, what is the carbon footprint my office has? What is the carbon footprint that I have transporting a spare part from America to India? So I personally believe that all the new disruption in aviation technology that's going to be happen, the earliest adapters are going to be the private jet industry.
Okay, that's as far as the luxury air travel segment is concerned. How does one approach the way forward for your regular air travel? The issue here is that the demand is already gone past pre-pandemic levels, and it's only going to keep rising with the rising Indian middle class. Do you see at some stage the supply and demand sort of meeting each other? If so, by when?
Okay, so it should happen pretty soon because there are lots of aircrafts which were grounded. Hopefully, the engine troubles and other things should get addressed.
Looks like one of them they might not take off forever.
so let's see. Let's wait it out and see how it happens. But I think you can also see one of the things which you have to do if you have to really ensure that this demand-supply gap catches up. I think in the Indian environment, you have to take care of the better regulation of market share. I think that's one of the things which needs to be done. Similarly, for airlines, I would say deregulate them. And the way to deregulate them is basically to have a good regulation of slots, which means if tomorrow Kanika says, hey, I want to go and set up an airline, a low-cost airline or a full-service carrier, and I want to fly from Delhi to Bombay, peak hour slots, a part of them should be given to her. Here is a peak hour slot. I will take it away from other airlines, give it to her so that she can come in. And by that, we are encouraging competition, newer players to come in. And when newer players come in, what will happen is they will be able to solve the problems which are typically there. They will be incentivized because here is a new guy who wants to succeed. If there is somebody else who's already sitting, who's in the money, so to say, then the tendency to solve problems is slightly less. You'll wait it out because you are anyway sitting pretty. So I would say slot management is a very, very fundamental point. Let new players enter the market.
Are you putting thoughts inside Kanika's head? Kanika,
Yes.
I have one idea. We should talk offline.
No, but seriously, I want to ask this question to you before I came to him. What is the rate of demand growth for you?
And it's very difficult to measure in our sector, to be honest.
Okay.
But let me put it this way. Post-pandemic, we've doubled the number of customers we fly.
Wow.
So by customers, I mean, so how we look at it is, airlines would look at it as per seat, per flight, all of that. For us, when a customer comes to you, he doesn't go to 5 different people. So it's a very loyalty-driven business. If a customer flies private with you, he only flies private with you. And he'll call you and say, Kanika, koi yahan se yahan jana hai, bill bhej dena. I mean, that's how it works, more or less. So the number of customers we've had flying private with us has doubled. So you can only imagine the exponential growth in the amount of flying hours and flights that has happened. And I think the main reason this has also happened is because, COVID made private flying normal. Before that, it was a luxury. It was what log kya kahenge? The perception wasn't right. All sorts of stuff. Now COVID happened and they were like, we are flying in the safest possible way. And it's like fine wine and Scotch versus whiskey. Once you get used to flying private, going back to commercial is rather hard, given that there are no frill airlines. But at the same time, I would say, commercial is giving us a run for our money as well.
It's all aspirational, isn't it? The Indian middle class is aspirational and the Indian HNIs are aspirational.
Oh, super aspirational, yeah.
So that's the reason why I wanted to ask you. You're talking about bringing back that X factor or glamour factor to the Indian aviation industry. And going forward, are you foreseeing a situation where you're going to be having that segmentation as far as, India's civil aviation is concerned? You're going to have certain carriers who want to give you, for the lack of a better word, frills, perks of taking to the skies, and the others who are saying, no, our business model is that we get you the best ticket price and nothing more and nothing less.
So most important thing, if you would see that the most required thing is to go from point A to point B on time.
Okay.
With safe thing, right? And that is what has, let's see, the last 10 years, that is what has changed the industry. Because earlier what it was, you go to the airport, you'll really wait and the flight will run or not, like the kind of experience she had it today. But the things like Indigo has changed the market completely. So yes, there will be a segment which basically says, yeah, I have to reach on time to a particular meeting. Doesn't matter to me the number of frills attached. Either I will go by a private jet if I can afford. If I can't, then I would like to go for an airline which is promising me an on-time things. So one. Number two, like people are going on a leisure. If they can afford Kanika, then they'll go with Kanika. If they can't afford Kanika, then definitely, really people.
0.1%.
Yeah. No, but that's growing. And
0.1%.
rapidly.
0.1% of India is still a very big number.
Exactly. It's a population of some countries.
Yeah, so the one who cannot afford, they really need what you're talking about, business class or a first class kind of a things, which currently I would basically say we have less number of options, which I'm sure the way the number of airports are increasing, we'll also start having those kind of options as well. Yeah, segmentation is going to be there. All the three segmentations are there, whether you're traveling on a business, leisure, or just to make sure that you have to go and reach somewhere on time.
So growth and inclusivity. And if I were to ask you the one big challenge in your mind that, specific to India's civil aviation, because it has everything going for it. Demand is only going to grow. They've already placed a huge number of orders, and you're going to have two separate things: the regular civil aviation and the sector that Kanika targets, for the HNIs and the regular people. So that's going to happen. And even within regular people, you're going to have segmentation funds of a luxury airline to a all frills airline to a no frills airline. What do you think is in your mind, the biggest challenge going forward?
The biggest challenge is the supply side, I think. That's where we have to get things right. I think the demand is already there. And on the supply side, I think some lie with the government, some lie with the airlines, some lies with the regulatory agencies. What lies with the government, I think the number one thing is ATF is still, last I checked, it's still being taxed in a very high level, right? And that directly adds to the cost for the end customer, making the ticket prices more expensive. I think that's the number one thing which the government should be doing. And they should be deregulating airlines and airports, I think, encourage more competition over there. So that's for the government. I think from the side of the airlines, I think internationally, LCCs and full service carriers are genuinely different. They are flying to different airports. They have, different class of aircraft, and their management systems are pretty different. In India, one cannot actually, the line between an LCC and FSC is actually very blurred other than the food. Maybe you have to buy your food in one, in the other it's free. Other than that, you can't really figure out what exactly is the difference between the two. So I think somewhere we need to bring this differentiation, because through this differentiation, probably the prices for LCC should drop far lower than what the FSCs charge for you. I think that's the other one. And the other thing, I think, in India, when you have an industry which is so big, in which there is a direct interaction with customers and numerous customers, individual customers, I think maybe there has to be a bit of consumer protection which needs to be built into this industry as well.
Yeah.
Because in other parts of the world, 1 year, if something happens vis-a-vis the flight, there is a compensation given to the customers and all those customer rights are there. In India, one doesn't hear of that. Maybe I'm reading the wrong newspapers. I don't know. But, one doesn't hear those things.
Okay. One last thing I want to ask you, Simmi, this. So with all that money coming, all that investment coming, all that interest in India's civil aviation, how long before, India has its own Emirates or Etihad, a global carrier here based out of India, India becoming a global aviation hub?
I would not say how long will we have to really wait for. Looking at the Udan as a program, right? Looking at the way we are attracting the number of, or the orders we have given for the number of aircrafts, it doesn't look that we have to wait for Etihad or Emirates. It is few years, we will really see the change. Now we are manufacturing it in the India, right? So I don't think so that, okay, we'll have to wait for a longer term. It is here and now, maybe within few years, we'll be able to see
It's
that.
already here. The flight is just about to arrive.
It's on its way.
Do you agree with that, Kanika?
I don't know. I think yes and no, but I believe Indians do things differently. We don't need to create an Emirates or an Etihad.
Okay.
I think it could be, Indigo could be the next big thing that happens to India with the way the connectivity is growing, right? You don't necessarily need to build these. I mean, if you look at, let's get into brass stats. Is Emirates profitable? No, it's losing money as you breathe. And I'm very happy. I'll give you an example. I have friends who travel Emirates first and they drink up all that fancy champagne and caviar. And they're like, the ticket cost is equivalent to what I've consumed on the plane. So, I mean, the way I look at it, I'm a Marwari, like we spoke about earlier. You build businesses for profitability, and I think the airline industry should be no different. Look at what Ryanair has done. I mean, no one talks about them. Ryanair revolutionized travel. When I was a college kid, I have flown to Ibiza from Luton for £10. Okay, and that's exactly what Indigo is doing. That's exactly what's happening in India. And I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to create, India will be an aviation hub, and I don't look at it only from the airlines point of view. I'm looking at it from design, technology, manufacturing. You go down south, you see the number of aircraft components being manufactured in India. Again, a lot around Tamil Nadu, a lot around Karnataka. All of Bangalore has these aviation design companies popping up, everywhere. So you're going to see us producing locally, consuming locally, and winning locally. And I think that's the key to success.
Consuming, producing, and winning locally. Fascinating. This conversation can go on even longer, clearly, but I'm afraid we've completely run out of time here on this edition of Boardroom Brunch. I'm going to thank all of you, Kanika, Simmi, and Kuljit. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us on this very special edition of Boardroom Brunch. And with that, it's a wrap here from my side. Thank you so much for watching.